Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth.
Fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. Salvation. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. There's a lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go,
case that we let us say that
if you're
the companies who
looking
work
for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you. I know that life outside is so hard.
Goeienaand, good evening fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and welcome to tonight's live stream. And of course tonight we are talking about menopause in women, and we're talking about testosterone changes in men, and this apparently starts in your 40s or around about that age where things start changing. And before we get into that subject, I've got a little appeal here. Dan Berryman is in desperate need of a computer. Doesn't have to be fancy, it just has to work. And if you go and have a look at the Loving Life homepage, you will see that we've started the Revelation series that Dan has been putting together over the weeks on the homepage, and it's really, really interesting, relevant and topical stuff that I suggest you go and have a look at. Alrighty, now tonight I have got two guests. I've got Nick Howarth and Marina. Marina's going to be talking to us about women's menopause, and Nick and I will obviously be talking about the male equivalent, if I can call it that. Without any further ado, let me get our guests on. Here we go. Hi, Nick.
Howdy.
Hi, Marina.
Hi.
Now, Marina, we haven't really met you before, so perhaps just tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll get right into it.
Okay, well, my name is Marina Howarth. I'm married to Nick, and yes, I'm part owner of our company, Best Body Health Coaching, and I'm a certified health coach. I'm a sportswoman and a mother and a grandmother, so I have lots of experience with female issues.
Okay, now you said you're a sportswoman. Are you I seem to recognize your face. Have you played at an international level at some sport?
No, provincial hockey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
played
which
provincial hockey for about 15 years, in fact.
okay, which province?
Oh, it was in southeastern Transvaal in those days.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! You are showing your age.
You are.
Well, you look a lot younger, I've got to say. Anyway, let's go. Nick, we know all about you. We spoke to you the other day, so yeah, we don't have to reintroduce you. Now, tonight we're talking about male and female issues related to growing old, and everybody who reaches their 40s is going to start going through these horrible things that start happening to one's body. Now, Marina, starting with you, what is menopause?
Okay, well, I'm going to give it to you in a simplified form. So basically, all women have about 400 eggs in their lifetime, and every month one gets released just before, their menstrual cycle. And when you're done with those, then you're done. You run out of eggs at about the age of 51. It's different for everyone. And at that point, then it means there's no more menstruation, no more pregnancy. And there's a big shift in hormones. There are 3 hormones involved in this. It's estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. Now, estrogen drops about 40 to 50% at that point.
Wow.
Testosterone drops about 50%, but progesterone drops 70 to 90%, which is huge. And progesterone actually counters and buffers estrogen. They work together. So because of the massive drop in progesterone, there's then a big imbalance, and it kind of makes it appear that your body is estrogen dominant. And then, because of that, women get different symptoms. There is a backup mechanism which is supposed to happen in the body. When you go through menopause, your adrenals are supposed to take over. They make the same 3 hormones, and it should give you the right amount of hormones needed. Of course, you're not going to need as much now because you won't be having children. But there's an issue with this. If you go into menopause and your adrenals are weak, going in, due to maybe a stressful life or stressful job or, environmental stress or shocks, that type of thing, they stress out your adrenals. So if you're going into menopause with weak adrenals and they're not able to back up the ovaries, then you're going to get some trouble. It causes different types of symptoms.
Okay. Wow. Now look, I remember when I was back in South Africa, this is back in the early 1980s, I reckon I saw some of the younger kids, and I mean mainly young boys, probably 7, 8 years old, who were like growing breasts, like boobs. And they say that was because they were eating too much Kentucky Fried Chicken, because of the hormones in the chicken. Do you have anything to say about that?
I mean, definitely. These days, it's a business. People try and get a bigger yield, so they pump their chickens full of hormones, or, they feed hormones to their chickens or to the cows, and then it gets into your body through eating it. And then, of course, it affects your body. It pushes your hormones out of balance because of the foreign hormones that are coming in, and it does cause lots of trouble, definitely.
And like for example, young boys having almost like breasts on them. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. So when we talk about GMOs and genetically modifying food, that's also problematic then, obviously.
Definitely. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So now let's get back to menopause. What are the symptoms of menopause?
Okay, so even though we say there are symptoms of menopause, it's actually not normal. You're not supposed to have those. If your adrenals are doing well and can back it up. But if it's not, then you get things like hot flashes. You get vaginal dryness, vaginal atrophy, which is, declining or wasting away, mood swings, weight gain, loss of libido, bone loss. 70% of women after menopause develop hot flashes, and it's a big issue. You talk to women, and it bothers them, all day long at work. At night they wake up sweating. You can't sleep. So it's a big problem for sure.
And there are other disorders as well, like a weight increase and mood changes and things like that, aren't there?
Definitely, yes. Your weight increases. You kind of get that saggy belly, and it's basically because of the adrenals that are not working properly, so they spike cortisol, and cortisol affects your sleep cycle. It releases stored sugar and raises insulin in the body, and so when insulin is raised in the body, then you can't lose weight. It blocks weight loss hormones, so it becomes a big problem. You even start getting wasting away of the bones. Women get osteoporosis and that type of thing.
And is arthritis also related to that? Because my mother used to have the most debilitating arthritis. She could hardly move her fingers.
Right. No, it's not really directly related to that.
Okay, so that's something else. Yeah,
Yes,
I'm lucky. I don't have that sort of issue. Now, what can one do to handle these symptoms of menopause?
Well, so the best thing would be before you go through menopause to look after your adrenals. Try and have not too much stress, which I'm sure is very difficult in this day and age. But try and keep the cortisol low in your body. If you haven't done that and you're now going through menopause and you're having all these symptoms, then you should definitely get onto a healthy diet. That's what we do. Our program is exactly that. It helps you to put back the different hormones to basically balance out the hormones. You can also counter high cortisol. We always tell our clients to go for a walk or watch some comedy show or something, just to relax a little bit, to get the stress to leave, that type of thing. But also our program is specifically set up to balance the hormones. So that's directly related to your diet. If you eat the right things, then your body starts absorbing the nutrients and helps your adrenals repair themselves and then be able to back up the ovaries and release the hormones that's necessary so that you don't have those symptoms.
You know what I find fascinating, Marina, is that when I was a young boy, I'm talking about back in the early 1960s, I remember we had fantastic meals. We would have salads, we would have vegetables, we would have real meat, not this fabricated meat or bugs, as which they're now trying to push down people's throats. We would have really good food, and the chickens weren't filled with hormones. And in today's diet, I compare, and of course we'd go outside and we'd exercise because we didn't have mobile phones. And you look today at young people in particular growing up, they sit behind their mobile phone 24/7. They eat fast food the whole time. They're setting themselves up for a real disaster, aren't they?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's not like you say when we were growing up, you're always being told go outside and play.
Yeah, exactly.
Under my feet.
Yeah.
And your mom would cook you homemade food, whole food. That's basically what our program is made up of.
Right.
Whole, homemade food, because then you know what goes into it. You don't have sugars and bad oils and all sorts of things, that disrupts your endocrine system and causes, the hormone imbalance.
Yeah. Now, just on that point, what I've been hearing is that a lot of the fruit in particular is coated with some kind of a wax to keep it fresh and keep it looking good, and that's not good for your health. How does one actually deal with that sort of shit that they put onto our fruit in particular?
Well, I mean, there's several ways. You get vegetable spray that you can spray on it and wash it off properly. But we promote going organic all the way. From reputable sources that take care of their produce and keep in mind that it's for human consumption, and not just to look good on the shelf for as long as possible. So yes, if you go to farm markets, places where you get organic food, that's the best way to go.
Yeah, well, I used to 20 years ago. I used to go to the Rockley markets here in Brisbane. Because I had clients there, and they had all these wholesalers of fruit and vegetables, and some of them had these huge cold rooms where they stored their fruit and their vegetables and stuff like that, and they said they could keep it there for months. Oh, wow. Shouldn't fruit and vegetables have a use-by date? So, if you pick it on the 1st of June, by the 30th of June, it's got to be eaten, not in December.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, there are ways of keeping fruit healthy, using ozone and that type of thing. But for sure, you shouldn't be keeping it for months and months. Traveling in the bottom of a ship, to get to you, and then you've got to try and, it's not going to have any nutrients.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess the best thing then is farmers markets, to go and buy your fruit and veg there. Now,
exactly, and you're supporting, your local farmers.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Now, okay, what about some advice to men on handling a partner who's going through menopause? Because look, if you're married or you've got a partner and you're reaching that, it's about in the 40s, isn't it, that it starts taking place?
Late 40s, but usually around 51, around
okay.
there.
So, what's your advice to men on how to handle the situation? Because obviously your partner is going to be feeling uncomfortable and so on.
Yes. Never tell her to calm down. Basically, yes, I mean, it's always good to educate yourself so that you have an understanding of what your partner's going through. And it's not something that she necessarily wants or, can help if she doesn't have the information on how to handle it. So, if you know about something and you understand it, then it's easier for you to handle it. So definitely for both the woman and the man, educate yourself, find out more about it and how you can handle it. And on the man's side, support your wife and buy her a 2-month health program from BBHC for Christmas. And it will benefit you and her.
An unashamed plug. I love it. Look, we'll put your website link down below this video so people can get in touch with you. All right. Now, look, we'll come back to you in a short while, Marina, but I'm going to turn my attention on Nick. Now, Nick, I'm an old fart, okay? Look, I'm nearly 70 years old, so I've been through all the shit that you're going to be talking about. Because you're going to be talking about, it's not just men who have issues when they get older. Sorry, not just women who have issues when they get older. Men do too. So that all starts when men stop producing testosterone. What's going on there?
Okay, so when a man reaches about the age of 40, his testosterone production is just about halved. So he's creating about half the amount of testosterone that he was when he was in his 20s or 30s. And obviously that affects various things. It's the what needs to be understood about it is, what is testosterone and where does it come from? How is it made in the body? Because if you understood that, you'd have some kind of an idea of how to produce more testosterone than you should be when you're getting older in a natural way. Not because a lot of men take testosterone shots and so on, and that's not good for you at all, because literally that just puts the testes to sleep and they stop producing testosterone. So testosterone is like one of the sex hormones. You've got estrogen, and you've got different sex hormones in men and women, and they're produced by the ovaries, the testicles, and the adrenals. And the thing with testosterone is, and it's become more and more and more of a problem in recent times, is because there's been a lot of attention put on cholesterol and high cholesterol levels, and then people are put on statins to lower their cholesterols, and it's really not as serious as it's been made out to be. A statin is what the big pharma calls a blockbuster drug, which means it doesn't ever actually cure something. It just continues on, and they have a customer for life. So how this links up to testosterone production is that testosterone is made from cholesterol. So, and the other thing as well is that your body makes about 75% of the cholesterol in it. And it doesn't make it from the fat you're eating or from your diet or anything like that. It makes it from bile. So, now what starts to happen is the person's having his cholesterol levels checked and reduced, and as a result of that, he's producing less testosterone, which in turn creates a dwindling spiral, and less cholesterol gets produced and less testosterone gets produced. And this causes all sorts of problems in men. They have muscle atrophy, they lose their libido, and it doesn't have to be that way. If you could keep your body healthy and producing testosterone at the level that it should be producing it, you could be having a happy sex life right up until you're in your 70s. It's like it's not actually normal to not have that. It's normal to be sexually active for much longer, and that there's a whole subject connected to the cholesterol thing, and it spills over into the male, becoming with his low libido, depression, high stress levels, insomnia, like irritability. And then what also starts to happen when he has low cholesterol is he starts to produce gallstones, and his gallbladder starts getting blocked up. So they chop the guy's gallbladder out, and that makes the situation even worse, because his bile then he's not producing enough bile, and the cholesterol is produced. It comes from the bile, and the testosterone comes from the cholesterol. And so when they start messing around with things in your body that are supposed to be there, it creates a whole domino effect into the rest of the body. Whereas if you just kept a healthy diet, and didn't eat what is being put in front of you by the big food industry, and you started eating organic food, which doesn't have these endocrine disruptors in it, and they're not GMOs, they don't have all these fungicides, pesticides, herbicides that are abundant in our food, you find that these kinds of things are not a problem. Like cholesterol isn't a problem, high blood pressure isn't a problem. All these things just start to disappear when you eat correctly, and the testosterone levels stay high. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what happens to people as they start getting older. Especially in modern times. You've been talking about, you remember when you were a kid, and I remember when I was a kid, and I looked at the adults in those days, and they were definitely high in testosterone. They were like hairy chested, like big men who were manly men right up into their 60s and 70s. And it just seems that in the last 30 or 40 years, that seems to have changed. And It's literally a matter of what people are putting into their bodies, which is creating this effect and making us all soft without any testosterone.
No, look, I know this isn't specifically related to the subject, but it's an area that's becoming really, really topical and disturbing, and that is this whole push to tell children that boys can be girls and girls can be boys, and then at a young age they're starting to pump things into them to give them a sex change. And you guys know a lot about this subject. What these big pharma companies are doing is, and it's a billion-dollar industry. That's why it's been pushed. But they are experimenting. I mean, they don't know the answers, but they're putting stuff into young children to make boys girls and girls boys. What are your thoughts on that? Just I'm going to put this to Marina first.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's playing around with things that is very dangerous. Those type of things, putting that in your body, it's just going to cause havoc with the hormone balance and create all sorts of other problems, and also once the person gets older, it's going to add up to many, many different problems. So maybe something that in the present looks like a good idea is going to end up in the future with huge issues for you, so definitely not a good idea.
Yeah. Now, look, I think there are actually three genders. There's male, there's female, and then there's mentally effed up, which is the third one. That's my view. Now, okay, Nick, what are your thoughts about this whole thing?
Well, I believe that kids are very suggestible, so you can push anything on them and make them believe it. And if the kid is a little bit unstable, maybe I have an unstable home life, or might be getting bullied at school, but he's not a stable individual. They become a sponge for false information, and I think that's what is being run. And there's definitely an agenda here. It's not a matter of there are really a whole lot of different kinds of genders that you can just pick one. That isn't the case. We know that isn't a fact. I think there's definitely an agenda that is being run on society to make us agree with this. It's almost like Goebbels in the Second World War, how he got everybody to agree with him. And and they were like slaughtering people left, right, and center, and they got the agreement of an entire nation on that. Although they said they didn't agree with it afterwards, but they did when it was going on. And it's the same thing going on now. It's like I think it's like literally a propaganda thing, and there's something underlying it. There's something behind this that there's some other agenda, some like population control agenda or whatever it might be. But it's definitely not a sensible or commonsensical thing that's going on with these kids.
Yeah.
Like I'm a commonsensical kind of guy, and if we're going to survive as a species, we're going to have males and females producing more males and females. That's the only way it's going to work. I've never seen a man have a baby, or get pregnant.
I was going to ask you that question, but anyway. Now, look, just to pick up on what you're saying, I mean, being a male or a female, it's not like licorice all sorts where you go into the packet of sweets and pick out one and say, I'm going to be this now. But it's interesting you said about bullied at school, because one of the things that I think is driving kids to become transsexual is the fact that when they do, when a boy says, I want to be a girl, all of a sudden he's like a sacred cow. You can't touch them. You can't touch them. Now, you take a kid who's bullied at school, let's say a little boy, and he sees some other kid was a boy, becomes a girl, and all of a sudden he's protected. You say anything against him, you're going to be in big trouble. And he thinks,
Right.
okay, now if I do that, they're gonna stop bullying me. So there's actually now a reason for that young kid who's very emotionally immature to actually make this drastic change, even though he doesn't understand the ramifications. And yet that same kid at the age of 8, 9, 10 can't buy cigarettes, he can't drink beer, he can't vote, he can't put tattoos on his body, but yet he can become a girl. I mean, that to me is crazy. And look, you said, Nick, you wonder if there's an agenda behind this. Well, I can tell you there is. And we talk about it here. We talk about it here on Loving Life TV. In fact, just this morning I put up 2 videos about BlackRock. Have you heard of BlackRock?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Now, BlackRock have a policy that they've put out to all their companies that they're invested in. And BlackRock and Vanguard, between them, own about 10% of the shares of all major international companies around the world. In fact, Vodacom, for example, which has just brought out an ad pushing LGBTQ, I don't know if you've seen it, but they are 10% owned by BlackRock. And this policy that BlackRock have put out is called ESG. You might want to write this down. It's environment, social, and governance. And what it is, it's a policy that's pushing inclusivity. In other words, you've got to accept people if they're boys, wants to be girls, and LGBTQ. It's actually pushing that entire society way. And
they call it inclusivity, but they exclude people that don't like that.
Yeah, well, let me tell you what BlackRock do. In South Africa you've got BEE, and if you don't hit a certain number of points, you can't get to doing business with the government. Okay, that's what Black Economic Empowerment is all about. Now with ESG, with BlackRock, now remember they own about 10% of the shares. If these big companies don't meet their criteria, similar to Black Economic Empowerment, BlackRock pulls their investment from them, which is going to devastate their shares.
That's right.
So they're actually using finance to push the policy of the transsexual agenda. And that you can see that happening with Target, with Woolies. Bud Light's a famous one where they've lost about 80% of their business now because their target market was bikies and they didn't like the idea that they were now being compared to transsexuals. I think that's a beauty. But these big companies are basically being forced to do this because of the ESG policy of BlackRock and Vanguard. And that's what's actually behind it. And what's behind BlackRock and Vanguard doing that is a World Economic Forum. You've heard, So that's the agenda, and you're right. It's to try and break down the family unit, and it's tried to reduce the population of the world, which is their agenda. Okay, now we're so far off the topic. Let's get back. Anyway, look, I'm pleased we touched on this because a lot of people don't understand what's going on with this LGBTQI and why big companies are now starting to push it. Well, that's the reason why. Okay, so...
Okay, good. Well, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah. Now, Nick, back to you. You've told us where testosterone comes from, and I'd like you just to expand what has cholesterol got to do with testosterone.
Okay, so testosterone is made from cholesterol. So basically, here's the deal with cholesterol. People go to the doctor and they get this blanket test of cholesterol, and it says, oh, your cholesterol is really high, and they put them on some kind of a statin, which brings their cholesterol down into range, apparently. But in actual fact, cholesterol is not an issue in the body at all. There's only one very, very small kind of cholesterol that could possibly become an issue, but it actually is usually never the issue. So what they do is they put this guy on these statins, and it reduces the cholesterol in his body. And when you reduce cholesterol in the body, then there's a whole lot of other side effects that start to happen, because cholesterol is actually like a little paramedic that runs around inside the body, and it mends internal injuries. So if you have, like, for instance, your heart valves are taking strain because of high sugar and a high carbohydrate diet, what it does is it acts like a sandpaper effect on your heart valves and your arteries, starts to calcify them. Then cholesterol comes along and it tries to patch it up like a plaster.
Wow.
And yeah, so that's what cholesterol's there for. It's actually very, very good for you. So now the guy dies of a heart attack, and then they do an autopsy and they cut him up and they go, oh, his heart's packed up with cholesterol. Cholesterol killed this man. Where that wasn't the case. It was his high sugar, high carbohydrate diet, which is again being pushed on us by big food, and the FDA and all of these guys are pushing this kind of a diet on society so that they get sick, and then they can also push the kind of drugs that they want you to take.
Yeah.
So attacking the testosterone side of things is just another way of making mankind ill. So that's kind of how the whole cholesterol thing fits in with testosterone. If you're going to reduce your cholesterol, if you're going to take anything that reduces your cholesterol, you are going to have you're going to end up with erectile dysfunction. You're going to end up with muscle atrophy. You're going to start getting old before your time. All of these things and you're going to start becoming more feminine before your time. As you get older, a person does get frail and starts to look a bit more feminine. You start to look like that a lot earlier. So that's the deal with it. So you don't want to be doing anything that's going to, stop your production of testosterone. So you've got to keep your cholesterol levels at a healthy level. And make sure that you have the right cholesterol. I'm not saying don't get your cholesterol checked. What I'm saying is get it checked with someone who actually knows what they're doing. There are very special tests that you do for cholesterol. And cholesterol creates just about every hormone in the body. In fact, it's not just testosterone. It's just about every hormone in the body. So if you start reducing it, that causes a endocrine disruptor in itself. So it creates everything to become unbalanced. And then the person gets sick with a seemingly unrelated disease to the cholesterol thing or the testosterone thing or the estrogen thing. And then he gets another pill to take,
Ah, okay. So that it's used, it's like the foundation of getting people on a whole bunch of other pills for profit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And quite honestly, one for one, we handle those kinds of people. It's like, this is, why I mention it is because I see it clearly. These are not just words that I'm blurting out of my mouth because I like the sound of my own voice. I do like the sound of my own voice, but I'm just kidding. But
I saw Marina give you a look.
we actually witness this daily, on a daily basis. We have hundreds of clients on our program.
Yeah.
And they've been ruined by this society's food intake, and environmental factors. And we start turning these guys around, and they can't believe how they are feeling now that they're eating the right food, and we've taken them off the kind of stuff that they shouldn't be having. And I had a guy come to me a few months, and this is very common. I mean, not everybody tells me this, not every client tells me this, but this guy came to me and said, I don't know what to do. And he must have been he's my age. In actual fact, he's my age. I knew him when we were kids, so he's my age. And he says, I don't know what to do. He says, I feel like a 16-year-old boy. What do I do? And my wife doesn't. And it's interesting, that starts to happen. The guy, you start to get your life back, and then when you got that back, you look back at what had happened to you, and you go, my God, what has this been done to me, by this whole food industry that, and it's not just the big food industry. You also have like sports nutrition industries, and you even have the natural health industry, which not everybody is on the same page with. A lot of them are, you got some of these elites who have bought some of these massive natural health companies. Now you got to wonder what's happening, with that industry. And so you've got to be very, very careful. The best way to do this is grow your own vegetables and grow your own meat, but we can't all do that. We're not all farmers. But you really have to watch what you eat. You really have to make sure that you're eating the right stuff, because the stuff out there that you're getting on the shelves is not for human consumption. Just look at the amount of disease we have around us. The obesity, the diabetes, the cancer, all of these things. It's like probably 100-folded in the last 50 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy what's happened, and it's very easy to fix. It's not hard. It's a simple, uncomplicated process to fix it, because the body is actually simple and uncomplicated.
Yeah, well, it's funny you talk about statins, because Dr. Peter McCulloch, who produces a daily email, I don't know if you get it, but he actually talked about statins, and he said it's one of the most destructive big drugs that they're bringing out, and it's invasive. And you know what I love about, I know we've talked about this, what I love about LifeWave, which I have the patches on me, is the fact that it's non-invasive. And what it's doing is actually reactivating my stem cells, which have gone to sleep. God bless their cotton socks. But anyway, so they're waking up, and it's great. Now, okay.
Yeah.
Getting back to you, Nick. Does low testosterone cause a low libido and erectile dysfunction? And what can people do about it?
Okay. So basically, what has to be done is you've got to up your nitric oxide level in your body. So there's various things that you can do for that. So nitric oxide is something that is created in your body when you you can if you breathe through your nose while you're exercising, you'll start creating more nitric oxide. And what nitric oxide does to your arteries is it expands them, so that you get more blood flow going through.
Right.
So obviously, for an erection, that's what you need. You need to expand it so that the blood flow can go through. That's what Viagra does. But Viagra has other side effects. It's made by one of our favorite companies.
Pfizer.
Yeah. There's a risk. There's other risks when you take Viagra. But you can actually, if you can up your nitric oxide in your body, that's the best way that you are going to handle your testosterone production, because it's directly related to testosterone production, and it's also directly related to erectile dysfunction. And erectile dysfunction and low nitric oxide levels are directly related to a high carbohydrate and high sugar diet, so when the person becomes insulin resistant, the arteries start to shut down and nitric oxide is pushed out. So you've got to shift the mindset about what healthy food is. The FDA has given us this food pyramid, which is like packed with bread and grains and everything, and that's what you're supposed to have the most of. And the thing that they say you must eat the least of is healthy fats, and that the healthy fats are what create cholesterol, and other things in the body, and bile, which your liver produces, has to break down that fat so that you can digest it. But because your cholesterol is low and your testosterone's low, it doesn't do that. So it doesn't absorb your fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D, and all these things have other side effects then. And there's obviously a pill on the shelf that can handle those side effects, but they're not handling the cause. The cause is the whole diet again. It all comes back to what you're putting in. Your cells, different cells in the body break down at different rates throughout its lifetime, and they rejuvenate and they renew and so on. But they renew themselves with material that you're putting in your mouth and eating. So if you're eating McDonald's every day, or you're eating GMO food, or you're eating KFC, that's what your body is going to build itself up with. It's going to build itself up with all this broken poison, whereas you just make a change today, cut out the sugar, cut out the carbohydrates, get your carbohydrates from cruciferous vegetables, and you'll see the change in your body. And I've been doing this for 10 years, and I still feel new improvements in my body. To this day, I still feel new improvements in my body. Things happen, and I'm like, wow, that's changed. I feel better. And I'm getting older, but I'm feeling younger.
That's great.
And I'm not just saying that. I'm not just saying that to hook people or anything.
Yeah.
It's the absolute truth.
Well, I want to just tell everybody a story about Pfizer. And this is a very, very personal story. Back in the early 2000s, I had a friend. His name was Peter. And he worked for Pfizer. And I lived in Maruka, it's a suburb in Brisbane at the time. And Pfizer had a house in Maruka. And Peter and I often used to go and have a coffee and talk. And obviously through the discussion, he told me what he was doing for Pfizer. And what he did for Pfizer was he actually went to every single doctor in Brisbane with his little briefcase and his samples of Viagra. And every doctor was given some samples so that they could give them out to some of their patients. But this is where it became really disturbing. He said, my main task is to get them to reach a certain target of prescriptions. And what Pfizer were doing, they were saying that if you produce, or if you put out 500 prescriptions in a 12-month period, we will send your family for a 2-week holiday somewhere in the Pacific region. Now, Viagra now have a competitive product called Camagra. I don't know if you've heard of it. But the difference is that you can get Camagra without going to see a doctor. Okay, now it does exactly the same thing. The reason why people had to go and get go to a doctor to get a prescription, to then go to the chemist to get Viagra, was because of Pfizer's competition. Because they had to hit 500 prescriptions. Now, this all went through the TGA in Australia, who were in on the deal. So, when we talk about the recent situation with a certain jab, you can understand that this compromise between Big Pharma and the so-called medical authorities that are supposed to be looking after us, it's been going on for decades. This is nothing new. I mean, this is just par for the course. But, look, the difference is that Viagra costs something like $15 a pill, and Camagra costs something like $1 a pill. That's
$50 for the pill, and another $50 for the prostitute. Expensive, man.
But Camagra is about $1 per pill, and it does exactly the same thing apparently. But it just shows you how you get ripped off by Big Pharma. Now,
well, the other thing as well is they this is what Big Pharma also do, is they go to places like the Amazon jungle and they find something that works there, and then they go and they make a synthetic version of it so that they can patent it,
Yeah.
And Viagra is one of those things, because literally it's just like herbs and spices that up the nitric oxide levels in your body, which do what Viagra does, without the side effects. So it's It's not a. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to work this all out. It's very interesting. There was a book written many years ago. I won't get into this. I'll get into this on another show. It's quite an interesting thing.
Yeah.
It was written by a CIA agent who spent some time in Russia in the early 1950s and came back and wrote a book about the communist agenda for planet Earth. And they said they would never have to fire a shot at the West, and they'll take over the West, and we can kind of see that happening already in the how they're going about it.
Yeah.
Subjects we've been talking about already.
Well, look, I can tell you what the active component is in Pfizer and in Camagra, because as you said, it's a natural product. It's called sildenafil citrate. Okay, sildenafil citrate. That's the active ingredient that actually helps people who've got erectile problems. Just so people know that. Now, let's get back to menopause and testosterone. What is? I'm going to Marina, you first. What is the impact on marriage? Because people been married for 20 years and suddenly this kicks in. How does this impact marriages? You speak to a lot of people. Over to you.
Yes. Well, I mean, one of the symptoms of menopause is lowered libido,
Right.
So if you have, not handled your adrenals and you've got a hormone imbalance, then you are sitting with that problem, and you don't know what to do about it, and you're just not interested, and you can't explain it. Your husband doesn't have an idea why, or starts thinking it's something to do with him, or you don't feel the same way about him anymore.
Yeah.
So it causes friction, and then he maybe go off somewhere else, and next thing you're divorced.
Yeah.
And it could have been handled if you had the correct information to handle it. It's something very simple to handle, and you can save a marriage.
Right. Now, Nick, before I ask you that same question, what's your advice to women for if their partner is going through this situation?
I mean, it would really be the same as what Marina was saying. I'm a big believer in, knowledge is, control. And if you understand another person and what they're going through, it changes your whole outlook on things. I'll give you an example of this. This is something that happened earlier on in my life. I used to be a policeman in South Africa in the townships in a place called Katlehong, and I arrested three guys who'd hijacked a car, and I was a rough and tough cop, and not much sympathy,
Yeah.
and I had these guys, and they were young kids. They were like 16, 17, and I said to the one who looked like he was the leader, I said, like, why are you doing this? Look at you now, look at you now. You're going to prison and you're like only this young. And he said, I'm tired of being hungry. He says, I haven't eaten for 3 days. I'm just tired of being hungry, And that changed my viewpoint. I got knowledge on the other person's situation, and it changed my whole viewpoint as a policeman. And I actually started operating differently then as a policeman at the time, which is the same in a marriage. If you can get that reality, like really understand what's going on with the other person, instead of getting upset with them, you actually start to feel sorry for them, or maybe feeling sorry for them is the wrong word, but you look at it and you go, wow, like she's really irritated today. That can't be nice feeling like that, or that's the difference between it. It's like, she's just being, like who she is, and today, and I can, this is who she really is, and eventually, like Marina said, you've had enough of each other, and either you leave each other, or you're living in separate rooms, or whatever it might be, and like, passing each other in the passage and like smirking at each other or whatever it might be. Whereas, you could actually change that whole situation around, firstly by understanding the other person, and again back to the diet. If you were eating correctly, a lot of it could be like the sting out of all of this can be taken out of it, and it becomes bearable rather than just like, I hate my life, and I hate my marriage, I hate my wife, I hate myself, and you get to a point where you love it again. You love living, and that's kind of my advice on it, is get a reality with the other person, and change the way you eat so that you don't have this going on all the time, and you start getting it under control. That's where the knowledge and control thing comes in as well. It's like, if you know and understand what you're supposed to be eating and how the body operates, then you know and understand what is bad for you and what is good for you. So then it becomes your choice what you want to do with that,
Right. Okay. Now, guys, I'm going to wrap up this live stream shortly. But before we do, I just want to just ask you if there's something you'd like to say in closing. Just advice or whatever comes into your mind. Let's start off with you, Nick.
Okay, so my advice is, don't eat sugar, don't eat grains, eat a lot of cruciferous vegetables, eat a lot of good fatty foods, and only have moderate protein. If you just do that, your life will change. But you really got to do it. That's my advice.
Okay. Marina?
Yeah, it's similar to what Nick says. If you feel bad every day, you're not happy with yourself, you're not happy with the way you look or the way you feel, there is something that you can do about it. It's not the way it's supposed to be, and it's there is something that can be done about it. So get the information, and once you have the information, you can do something about it, and you can be cause over the way your life is. So, it's not hopeless. You can do something about it.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And, it's been fun. We got off the topic a couple of times, but I think it's all been... it's all been sort of...
It was so fun.
Yeah, it was good. All right, guys.
Thank you for having us. We enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it's a great pleasure. And don't forget to send me your link, Nick, and I'll put that below the video.
I will do. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Take care.
You.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. That was Nick and Marina, and we were talking about, well, adult things, menopause and erectile dysfunction. Wow. That's a new subject for a live stream. Let's say it. I'm going to go out with Op ons Rots and have a great evening. And don't forget, tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Johannesburg time, we will be having another live stream. Take care and bye for now.
Ons loop hand aan hand op goue warm sand. So baie wat ek wil hê, so baie dit brand. Ek staan op my rots met golwe wat bots. Ons het geen vrees, want hy is in beheer. Ons sien al die planne van goddeloze manne. Ons weet hulle gaan nie wen nie. Dis geskryf soos 'n duif. Ons sal wen, aanhou glo, want hy is in beheer. Sterk, dis kragte wat werk, die gevoel in my hart, dis vrees wat wil brand. Ons is boere met trots, met my hand teen my bors. Ons ken geen vrees, want hy is in beheer. Ons sien al die planne van goddeloze manne. Ons weet hulle gaan nie wen nie. Dis geskryf soos 'n duif. Ons sal wen, aanhou glo, want hy is in beheer. Ons sien wat gebeur, die leuen sal ons nie steen. Kom staan nog 'n keer, ek is stil, want ek weet hy is in beheer. Ons sien al die planne van goddeloze manne. Ons weet hulle gaan nie wen nie. Dis geskryf soos 'n duif. Ons sal wen, aanhou glo, want hy is in beheer. Ons sien al die planne van goddeloze manne. Ons weet hulle gaan nie wen nie. Dis geskryf soos 'n duif. Ons sal wen, aanhou glo, want hy is in beheer. Ja, hy is in beheer.